Still with us to discuss this case out of New York, criminal defense attorney Rachel Kugel. Rachel, thanks for sticking around with us. Missing person cases are so difficult for a community at large. You heard there, even the chief of police having difficulty sharing with the public that the little girl they had been searching for is no longer alive, and they can confirm that. Your thoughts on how that impacts a case like this?
Yeah, I mean, not even just missing person, but missing child, right? And you can see, I mean, it's the worst thing that a community can ever undergo. And you can see the pain of those police officers. And it shows you that, you know, this isn't all just in a day's work, right? These people really take this to heart. This is a beautiful little girl, and it's a horrific end that she had to meet. And I think what we can take away from it in terms of, you know, the defense strategy, or the strategy overall in this case, right, is that first we saw the concerns that he couldn't get a fair trial in the local community, right? And then, so they moved the case ultimately to a different area, a different county, in order to pick a jury there who hopefully could be more fair. And then at the last minute, they decided to waive a jury altogether and have a bench trial. And the question is why, and it may be something we never fully know. Maybe eventually after the trial, we'll hear from one of the attorneys and get some information. But strategically, I think what we're seeing is a decision, maybe a Hail Mary pass, but a decision that there's so much emotion wrapped up in a case like this that the hope is that a judge has a better chance of putting that emotion to the side and maybe focusing on pure legal issues than a jury does. And I think that's what we're seeing in terms of this strategy call made by the defense here.
I agree with you, trying to remove that emotion. And as you mentioned, the very last minute, the jury was already pulled and summoned, and on the first day of jury selection is when they filed that waiver. So who knows why they waited so close to the time of picking a jury to waive that right, but it is their right to waive. I do want to play something from a law enforcement officer who testified on the stand, Gregory Pfeiffer. He is a lead detective on this case and talked about that grim discovery.
Can you show us where that access point is to the area of the pond that we've been talking about?
So in relation to the last exhibit, you see this gravel area here in the upper right-hand corner of this map. This is the access road coming down to the level near the pond off of 270th Avenue on the north east section of this particular area.
Where was Breasia remains found?
So by way of this pointer, where the red dot is at this time, in the northeast corner of this area, you can see where there's a black automobile tire right here, and her body was found just a little to the east of this area here where the tire is.
Okay, and when her body was found, where was that tire located in relation to the skeletal remains?
It was directly, I wouldn't say the exact pictures, but very, very close to where her legs were. If you see like a little bit of a bare area just adjacent to this tire, that is where some of the clearing of the trees had to be done by us a few days prior to the day this photo was taken in order to recover her remains.
Rachel, when I'm looking at this map, it does seem that that location is pretty close to the road. It's not actually in the pond, but also it looks like that map is from a time during autumn versus in July when you would have seen a lot more greenery in that area. Anything stand out to you at this location of the remains?
Well, I mean, certainly, I think as you correctly point out, I hate to use this term, right, but it's a little lazy, right? I mean, the access road is right there. I mean, it's as if the person just dumped at the earliest possible moment. So it doesn't look like there was all that much thought placed into it, which makes you question whether it was hastily done or, you know, because again, there's a pond right there. It's sort of an odd choice. It didn't doesn't require that much work or effort to get a little further in and cover one's tracks a little further. It also shows us that, you know, so much time had passed before they found her that it is part of the reason that they have trouble establishing exactly what happened here, right? I mean, they can't establish whether, you know, there was any kind of sexual assault or anything like that, which also makes it hard to attach any kind of motive.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, these details are horrific enough without knowing more, but you don't know why he would have driven her 20 miles away. We don't believe that she was deceased because the projectiles were found in her hair there at that location. So she would have been alive being driven to this location and then shot in the face. I mean, it's unfathomable what the thought process was, and you just think about this little girl. What must she have been thinking while she was being driven out to the woods there? But in terms of the aggravation, could this go to another reason why a jury just simply would not have been in the defendant's best interest hearing this case?
Yeah. I mean, 100%, I think that's right? As these facts drip out to us as we're watching this trial go on, you know, each one is a heartbreaker. Each one is a heartbreaker on its own, and then, as you point out, attaching the little girl to it and her thoughts and fears, and it's more than we as attorneys can bear, let alone a jury of regular people who hopefully have no experience with this kind of horror show, right? And so I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason that we're seeing that they made the choice they did, is because they didn't think they had a chance with a jury. And while they may not have a chance with a judge either, it at least gave them sort of something to work with, a strategy, right? Anything, because that's what you need, right? You're still a defense attorney. You still have to defend this guy. And, you know, I think that was their strategy. And I think it's an admirable one, quite frankly. It's a risky one. It's brave. And I think, you know, it was an interesting call, and I see why they chose it.
It's part of our system. It's how our system works, is to give him the best defense possible. So it appears that's what his attorneys are doing. Rachel, don't go anywhere. When we return,